Wandering Winder here with, would you believe it, but more Dominion previews. This is the second edition of Hinterlands. I think this is the last second edition we're getting for a while, but anyway, let's get right into it. First card here that I want to talk about is Weaver. Weaver is a 4-cost action reaction, and it says gain 2 silvers or a card costing up to 4. And then the reaction bit is when you discard this other than in cleanup, you may play it. So that's the same reaction we see on, for instance, Village Green. And honestly, the reaction might be the most exciting part of the card to me because, um, well, the past few sets of previews, I feel like there have been tons and tons of cards. It's like, oh, this combos with things that discard, or it like this combos with things that want to be discarded rather, like Village Green or Tunnel to some extent. But there aren't very many of those cards. Well, now we have another one, and it's this Workshop Village. Um, Workshop Village? It's this workshop. I don't know why I said the word village there. Um, I guess those discardy card things now kind of turn into village is question mark. Um, anyway, the effect of this, obviously a workshop is a workshop. I'm not big on workshops. This could also get 2 silvers though, and 2 is a lot more than 1. It's twice as many in most cases. Um, how good is getting 2 silvers though? I mean, so Groom can get 2 silvers. Um, the without the reaction, this is like it's pretty much just worse than Groom because Groom could get you 2 silvers or a card that costs up to 4, and if it got the non-silver card that cost up to 4, also was like Curse or some other weird edge cases. It was also getting you a horse, which was usually good, or a card in an action if you're getting a victory card, which was usually good. So, like without the reaction bit, pretty much worse than Groom. Of course, that isn't saying much because Groom's real good. I do think this is going to be a worse card than Groom overall. So, hooray for that big card evaluation skill. Um, 2 silvers. How good is 2 silvers? I think it's good, but it's not that good. Um, right? If you're just trying to build like some kind of a money density deck where you're buying a province a turn, um, how many of these do I want in that deck? And the answer is probably 0. I like if there's nothing else on the board, the answer is probably not 0 because 2 silvers is worth it. Um, in some situations, but if the answer, like, there's other terminals which are going to be better. Just the silver flood is not a super reliable thing to do for money density, and I mean that's the long and short of it. Is yeah, gaining silvers is good, but it's not that good, and gaining a bunch of them is good, but it's not gonna like it's hard to hit 8 just by adding gobs of silvers. You really need gobs and gobs of silvers. You want to be gaining other things, and this could get you other things, but like workshops aren't that good in that deck to start with. um yeah, I mean, I think you're going to want this when you want a workshop, and you're going to want this even a bit more when you have discard stuff that makes the terminalness of this go away. But I mean, even if it's not terminal, oh, I discarded this. Is it better than Ironworks? The answer is yeah, because it's more card advantageous than Ironworks. Like if you had to discard the card anyway. But you don't want to, I guess the point is you don't want to go out of your way. Oh, I'm going to get some discard stuff to combo with it. Like You could probably contrive a scenario where I'm going to get an embassy and then I'm going to discard three of these. Actually, you're not going to contrive that scenario because embassy's gone, as we're about to see. But the point is, you're not going to like, oh, I'm going to get a warehouse just to trigger these. No, you're going to get the warehouse if you wanted the warehouse anyway. And then there's some nice synergy if you might wanted this anyway. Or, you're going to get a hunting lodge because you wanted a hunting lodge anyway. But you shouldn't, like, I don't know, get a cartographer so you can discard these. Ooh, like, no. If you already really wanted the cartographer, then good for you. But yeah, anyway, it's a workshop. I'm not going to give it a high mark, but it's going to have its spots. It's going to have its spots. And two silvers, if you're drawing your deck, maybe you just need to add payload, and you could do worse than two silvers, although you have to keep drawing them, which is kind of annoying. So I don't know. I mean, I guess like multiple of these, one of them gets silvers, and then one of them gets a village, and then one of them gets a smithy or something. And you could do that if all that stuff's on the board. That's okay. But yeah, I don't. It's not that exciting to me. Let's move on. I mean, it's kind of exciting because I love that there's more cards with this reaction. But I don't think it's that strong, is I guess what I should say. Let's move on. So Embassy, as I just alluded to, is going away, which really surprises me, honestly. When I looked at the Hinterlands card list, there are so many cards that I could see getting cut. Embassy was not Embassy? Embassy was not high on the list. So yeah, I'm kind of surprised this is going away. But it is. And now we're going to have Wheelwright. Right with a W. A person who makes or repairs wheels. That thing. Anyway, Wheelwright is another 5-cost action. It says plus a card plus an action. You may discard a card to gain an action card costing as much as it or less. So, yeah, uh, this is an effect. The issue is usually that um, you don't want to discard your good cards, and your expensive cards are usually your good cards, unless you have like a province or something, which is a good card that's expensive that you don't mind discarding. Um, or if you have, like a village green or the card we just saw, or a tunnel, I guess maybe. But those cards aren't that expensive anyway. Let's not worry too much about that for the moment. The so what decks are you going to have provinces in? And that's usually going to be your like your money kind of decks, where I'm going to have a province fairly early. So you might think this is good in those decks, and like it would be good in those decks to discard a province to get like a fiver or something. The problem is you're not going to get this card in those decks, because when are you going to get this card in those decks? Those decks, you're not going to get it early. You're not going to get it in mid game because it's such a big cost to discard another fiver. Like to discard some expensive card other than province, basically, right? It's really, really costly because you need to play that card. You can't really afford to discard it. So I actually and like it's not going to line up with province that often. Usually, I mean, maybe there's going to be some case where you thin down a lot, and then you get some money so you can afford province, and you get a copy of this or two along the way. And that's probably fine. Like if maybe like a donate game or something, you could do that. But for the most part, I think um, you're not going to want to do that. You're going to want to get this card when you're drawing your deck, and in fact, when you're over drawing your deck, right? You're drawing your deck, you get some overdraw for reliability, you get some of these, and then you really go to town, right? You play this, you discard one of your excess pieces, you gain another lab, or you gain another copy of this, and then you redraw all that stuff because you have overdraw, and you do it again and again and again and again, um, and the piles just evaporate. So I think that's where this is strong, is where you can get some overdraw, and you just turn fivers into more fivers, kind of Way of the Rat style. But unlike Way of the Rat, I mean, the difference on this is, well, there's a couple differences. You can gain a card that's not just the one you discarded, or not just the one in this case that you'd be ratting. Um, you don't have to discard a treasure. You do have to discard an expensive card. Um, but the big thing for that situation I'm talking about is that this is not terminal, whereas Way of the Rat basically is. This being not terminal is a big game changer for that scenario. So, like, I think with a bit of overdraw, things just really, like, you can just start comboing off and really deleting piles. It's like, oh, I have 3 cards of overdraw, so I'm going to discard, I'm going to play one of these and discard to get more draw cards, and then I'm going to draw a bit more, and then I'm going to play another one of these to get to discard something to get another copy of this, and then I'm going to draw more, and then I'm going to discard another thing to get some more draw, and then the next turn I can do that. I have more than 3 cards of overdraw, so I can do even more than that. And so mostly that's just getting more draw or whatever, but at whatever point you can like stop and instead get more payload and just immediately, right? So you're going to want to focus on the draw first and only turn to payload when you really need to, because the game is going to be too close to ending, because this is your payload. This can turn into payload. You can't just do this if there is like no payload on the board, or if the only payload is silver or something. You're going to not be too happy, because at the end of your chain, your opponent has bought 2 provinces or something, and you're like, now I'm gonna get a bunch of silvers, hooray? Question mark. But you really don't need much payload for this to really be strong if the pieces to draw are there. You just get gobs and gobs of draw in some of these, and this, I think this could be really strong in those scenarios. But you do need the scenarios to be available, and I guess you need probably not like the super premium payload to be there. Probably super premium payload is better than this, but yeah, I think this card can be very, very strong when you're drawing, just as a way to pile good, basically mostly good actions. And you could discard other expensive cards if you have them, I suppose. I don't know what other expensive cards you would have. Oh, you have like some duchies or Duchy Duke. If your opponent is going Duchy Duke, you take a couple duchies and you can discard those over and over again. Sure. Um, Stuff that they swindled into or something. Cards that were good early and aren't anymore because they trashed. I don't. The trashers are probably still good. Like, I don't. You just play the altar instead of this. So I'm not exactly sure what else you're discarding except for like excess draws. Like you have overdraw, and so you're discarding excess components. But I think you're mostly going to be discarding action, but not always. I guess I should note that this can also gain, like you discard an overlord to get another overlord. You discard a possession to get another possession. All that kind of stuff. Specialty costs, once you get the first one. So, like, you discard a scrying pool to get another scrying pool, or a university to get a scrying pool, or a apothecary, or what have you. Which is nice, but I don't think a super important thing for this card. I guess maybe with scrying pools at a certain point, like this, you have overdraw because of the scrying pool thing, and then this can make them multiply faster without having to get more potions. So that's something, I guess. But I think mostly it's going to be you have village and smithy or lab and lab kind of stuff, and You just go swoop, 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 swoop. Let's move on. Last card for the day, Oracle, going away, getting replaced by Witch's Hut. Although really I think Witch's Hut looks much more like a replacement to Embassy to me, and just makes me even more confused as to why Embassy is going away. I guess I should read it. It's a 5-cost action attack, as you might expect with something with Witch in the hand. And it's given some real like Baba Yaga vibes. Not that I know much about that mythology, but I played King's Quest. Um, anyway, +4 cards, discard 2 cards revealed. If they're both actions, each other player gains a curse. So you don't want to discard 2 actions very often. If you draw them dead, then sure, you do. If they're village greens, then sure, you do. Um, but if they're just like good cards in your deck, it's going to be pretty rare that I'm like, oh, I'm going to discard this peddler and this bridge or whatever just because I want to give you a curse. I'm not going to say that's never going to happen, but I don't think it's going to be super common, especially early, right? And that's when curse givers are at their most effective, is early on. I think the way that this does give curses is going to be mostly, well, I guess occasionally if you just draw stuff dead, but largely if you are in a similar situation as the previous card, right? You're drawing your deck and you have some overdraw, and then you discard a couple payload cards and then play another couple cantrips to redraw them, and then you're giving a curse. Hooray. But even then, I don't think that's going to be super common. I think this is largely like +4 cards, discard 2 cards, which is weaker than Embassy. And it doesn't have the on gain of Embassy of giving a silver, which is, some people would say, oh, that's silver attacked. And I don't think it usually attacked, but it's a pro and a con in some ways, I guess. Um, this card seems fine. When you are drawing a lot, giving the curse is going to be annoying some. But if you can clean up junk, then you can, like, and the junk isn't, like, if it's not like Moneylender or Spice Merchant, if you can clean up the curses, that's often going to be the case that you can in these decks where you're trying to draw. If your opponent's doing that, it's not that the curse doesn't still hurt, but it doesn't hurt that much. And because you have to discard 2 on this, it's not exciting as a Smithy variant. This card is pretty weak. Like, it's fine. Like, +4 cards, discard 2 is fine. Don't get me wrong. But it's not exciting whatsoever. I guess you could play this in money decks more than a lot of other Smithies, but you don't want to play those other Smithies that much either. It's still not like War for Margrave or something. I think this card is by no means unplayable. Like, it's fine, but it's not particularly strong, I don't think. Although sometimes, like, you're gonna just coalesce to that point where you're drawing your deck and you're gonna have, I don't know, a couple of these, and you could start to roll like 2 or 3 curses a turn, I guess. Maybe you kind of need some overdraw for that. This is not the 5 that wants me to get to that deck. It's not as exciting to me as the Wheelwright, which looks to be the strongest of these to me, although not like, oh my gosh, it's the new hit card. Like, I do think this is very strong. Weaver seems maybe the most interesting to me, although Wheelwright's interesting enough, and Witch's Hut just seems really not more interesting than Embassy to me. It's 1 fewer card than Embassy, and I don't think you want to underestimate that. Even though it's like plus a card and then discard it, I don't think you want to underestimate that. Anyway, whatever. What do you guys think? What do you gals think? What do you peeps think? Leave comment in the comments section. We'll be back tomorrow with more of these previews. Yeah, thanks for watching.